The incarnated sorcerers from the Culling games give us more information that we can use to scale the Heian era fighters. Hey, what's up everybody? It's LeeLos, and today we're talking about why Gojo versus the Heian era is obvious. Stay steady in pursuit of your dreams and goals. You're born to win, you're made for greatness, and I definitely believe in you guys. Keep up the great work each and every day. So, Gojo Satoru is one of the most powerful and genius characters in the entire world of Jujutsu Kaisen. Today we're going to analyze every single power-up and ability this legendary monster has displayed to figure out overall how strong would Gojo be in the Heian era. Would he still be considered one of the strongest, or would he just be another average sorcerer? So the simplest answer to this is given to us in the Sukuna versus Jogo battle. After absolutely low-diffing Jogo, Sukuna states, "I fought humans, sorcerers, and cursed spirits 1,000 years ago, and you were still one of the better ones I fought. Stand proud, you were strong." We don't know how many different people actually battled Sukuna, but this statement is pretty telling. If Jogo was in the Heian era, he would at least be considered somewhat strong, and a highball interpretation of this is that Jogo would actually be one of the stronger characters in the Heian era. Then when you consider the fact that Uro, somebody that Yuta essentially mid-diffed, was the leader of the Sun, Moon, and Star Squad, and this squad was considered an elite force in the Heian era, when you consider that, the idea of Jogo being in the range of somewhat strong to one of the stronger characters when compared to the Heian era characters starts to make more sense. Jogo, the same character that Gojo absolutely low-diffed at the very beginning of the series, while making fun of him the entire time, that alone is pretty solid evidence that if you were even to take just the start of series Gojo and put him in the Heian era, he would already be one of the absolute strongest sorcerers in that era. But the incarnated sorcerers from the Culling games give us more information that we can use to scale the Heian era fighters. Yorozu, with her base curse technique construction, was already so strong that it stated she was on par with the toughest fighters of the Heian era. Remember, this is her with her base curse technique. It gets far stronger. Yorozu evolved her curse technique after being inspired by the strengths of insects and develops her ultimate armor, meaning she went from being on par with the toughest fighters of the Heian era to being considerably stronger than that. She became so strong that she defeated the 5 empty generals by herself. Some translations call them the 5 void generals, but I'll just be calling them the 5 empty generals. It's just kind of easier to say, so I'll just be calling them that throughout this video. The 5 empty generals are stated to be equal in power to the Sun, Moon, and Star Squad that was led by Uro. This gives us a pretty solid scale for how Yorozu compares to the Heian era. Lowball, this means that Yorozu with her ultimate armor is stronger than not only the 5 empty generals, but she's stronger than the entire Sun, Moon, and Star Squad. And if you medium to highball Yorozu, she would be stronger than the entire Sun, Moon, and Star Squad plus Uro all at the same time. To be fair, a lot of fans just view that as the actual interpretation of this scene. Then, after 15-finger Sukuna absolutely low-diffs this ultimate form of Yorozu, Yorozu then brings out another ability, the Perfect Sphere. The Perfect Sphere generates infinite pressure, so anything it touches instantly disappears. She then uses her domain expansion and is about to make the Perfect Sphere a sure hit technique. The statement about Yorozu defeating the 5 empty generals never mentions the Perfect Sphere or her domain expansion at all, meaning there's a real possibility that Yorozu soloed the 5 empty generals while holding back massively. She might not have even used her domain expansion or Perfect Sphere at all. The crazy reality is Yorozu went from being on par with the toughest fighters of the Heian era to being considerably stronger than the toughest fighters of the Heian era with just her ultimate armor. Then she has 2 other abilities on top of that might be even stronger than her ultimate armor. You could honestly make an argument that Yorozu might have actually been the second strongest sorcerer in the Heian era. But despite being this powerful, 15-finger Maguna absolutely low-diffs her without even using dismantle or cleave a single time. He doesn't even use his domain expansion. Something that makes this even worse is the reality that Megami might have been slightly suppressing Sukuna's strength the entire time. When Sukuna first took over Megami's body was resisting hurting his friends. As a result, Sukuna's cursed energy output was fluctuating, and at the lowest, it would drop to about 10%. To overcome this, Sukuna took a darkness bath so he could be closer to evil. However, killing Yorozu using Megami's curse technique was the final step Sukuna needed to completely destroy Megami's desire to fight against Sukuna. Since Yorozu was controlling Megami's sister's body the entire fight, even though he had just gotten out of the darkness bath, you could make an argument that Megami might have been still holding back Sukuna slightly. That's a debatable thing, so let me know what you guys think about it in the comments. Despite this, 15-Finger Maguna absolutely low diffs Yorozu, one of, if not the actual strongest character from the Heian era. He really doesn't even praise her at all. He kind of treats her like a fodder character, defeats her without using his domain, without using cleave or dismantle. He barely tries and wins without taking any lasting damage at all. When you compare that to his battle against Gojo, where Sukuna was at full power, Megami's spirit was completely broken, he had prep time as well, and the fight still went to extreme diff, the reality is he would have been in the exact same tier as Sukuna. He would have been the strongest side by side with Sukuna. It's debatable about who would win between Heian era Sukuna and Gojo. That's a completely separate topic all on its own, but Gojo and Sukuna are in the same tier. They would both be considerably above everyone else in the Heian era. When you analyze the statement that Kashimo gives when he's hyping up Sukuna in his Heian era form, Kashimo states that Sukuna annihilated the Sun, Moon, and Star Squad and the 5 empty generals, and he drove back the Darkness Pacification Force, which was formed by members of the Abe clan, including Angel and remnants of the Sugawara family. We get a good understanding about how strong the Sun, Moon, and Star Squad was. They were weaker than Ultimate Form Yorozu, and so were the 5 empty generals. When you consider the fact that Yorozu might have beaten the 5 empty generals without using her domain or her perfect sphere, this legendary feat that Sukuna achieved, you can make an argument that maybe Yorozu might have been able to do the same thing if she used her domain and perfect sphere. That's a debatable thing. Let me know what you guys think in the comments. The only unknown aspect about how powerful these guys are the Abe clan's elite forces and the remnants of the Sugawara clan. The Sugawara clan, that is the distant relative that connects Gojo and Yuta. We have no idea how strong those guys were, and then also these were just the remnants of them. They could have been weak. We really have no idea. To be completely honest with you, this Darkness Pacification Force might have been weaker than the 5 empty generals. We don't actually know. They could have been somewhat stronger or somewhat weaker. We don't really know exactly how it happens. There's a possibility these guys watched Sukuna wipe out the Sun, Moon, and Star Squad and the 5 empty generals and decided to just leave. Yeah, you could make an argument they just saw that happen and then just said, okay, nah, we're not gonna fight him anymore, and then just kind of ran away, because it says that he just drove them back. We don't really know how it actually happens. Hopefully we get more information on that at some point. Also, we get a flashback to a harvest festival where people are praising Sukuna. When one person asks, why do we have to do this? The other says, have you forgotten that the Sun, Moon, and Star Squad were considered elite warriors, and so were the 5 empty generals? And they say the fact that Sukuna destroyed them is why we don't want to mess with him. They never even mention the Darkness Pacification Force at all. So maybe the Darkness Pacification Force really was the weakest of these 3 groups. When Kenjaku starts the Culling games, he states that the Culling games were the start of the Heian era again. So you could also make an argument that the level of power that we saw in the Culling games was on par with the level of power that was in the Heian era. And we saw that Gojo still towered above the Culling games. So if Gojo was in the Heian era, he would be in the same tier as Sukuna and would essentially just be crushing everybody the same way that Sukuna crushed Yorozu. So one last thing I've seen people use as an argument to say that Gojo would just be average in the Heian era is there's this scene where Gojo scares Sukuna, and the narrator states that Sukuna feels fear for the first time in 1,000 years. This means 1,000 years ago, or at the very least at some point in the Heian era, something made Sukuna feel fear as well. Since Sukuna lived from childhood to adulthood throughout the Heian era, we don't know what form of Sukuna felt fear back during this time. Maybe the last time Sukuna felt fear was when he was a child. Maybe he was just just a kid, might not have even had a domain expansion yet, and fought somebody who was decently powerful and felt fear during the fight. Or maybe it was referring to a Sukuna who was holding back while fighting hordes of enemies at the same time and got caught off guard by a surprise attack. Considering that there's a real possibility that Yorozu might have been the second strongest sorcerer in the Heian era, the odds of some other sorcerer 1v1 being strong enough to make full power Heian era Sukuna feel fear is very low. There's a lot more I could say about this. Sukuna feeling fear most likely did not happen during one of his most prestigious feats, the moment that Kashima was hyping him up for. Sukuna feeling fear most likely did not happen then, because based on the feats we know, these guys might have all been weaker than just 15-finger Sukuna. You can actually make a good argument that when Sukuna beat them, he was holding back the entire time. When Uro saw 15-finger Maguna, she was instantly terrified and knew it was Sukuna, meaning maybe this was all the power he used when he beat them the last time. Based on what we know from the Heian era in the series, if Gojo was in the Heian era, he'd be in the same tier as Sukuna, destroying pretty much everybody. That's everything I wanted to say. Thank you guys for watching. I appreciate the views in the comments. Like and subscribe, and I'll see ya on the next one.